Hello, this is Larry Johnson speaking. The subject of today's seminar is 6 display changes you can make that will immediately increase your sales. Just to give you some background information, my name is Larry Johnson. I'm the author of The Complete Guide to Effective Jewelry Display. This book has been available for the last few years to help independent jewelers in the United States increase their business by displaying their merchandise more effectively. I also contribute each month to In-Store magazine with various articles on jewelry display as well. I'm the owner of Larry Johnson Consulting Group. We're based out of Texas, and we work worldwide assisting independent retailers in improving their jewelry display. My consulting service is affiliated with the Edge Retail Academy. Before we begin, let me tell you that I suggest you drop by our website, effectivejewelrydisplay.com, and look at some of the helpful information that's available for free on there. In addition, consider our new jewelry display online course that's recently been introduced in the spring of 2015. This course is an update of the book that I wrote several years ago and contains up-to-date information on all aspects of jewelry display, including basic principles, store image, store planning, colors, showcase selection, display fabrics, lighting, display elements, signage, promotional display, windows, wall cases, countertops, floor displays, accessories, security, maintenance, trim, and packaging. There's also an extensive chapter on how to display specific types of merchandise and the best displays to use for that type of merchandise, such as bridal diamonds, fashion diamonds, colored stone, and other major categories of merchandise. Here on this next slide, you'll see an example of the signage chapter, where not only do you receive my comments on signage being used in a jewelry store, but you also get the input from an outside expert on this area as well. So each chapter gives you people's opinions that should help you be more effective in your own store. This online course is available through Effective Jewelry Display at an introductory price of $349. Now let's get started. Point number 1. Display with intention in every showcase. What I'm hoping I can communicate to you today is how important it is not just to work at getting everything inside the showcase, but to work at presenting it better so that it gets sold out of the showcase. I urge you to think about your presentation and display with intention. Decide which items in the showcase you want most to sell and display them more predominantly, more effectively in the showcase to help you move those items out. Far too many people get involved in simply cramming everything into the showcase and leaving it up to the customer to figure out which items it is they want to buy. What I suggest is that we set a baseline level of sales as we currently have them, and then we adjust the displays, try something new, and we track the results of sales following those changes to the showcase until we get the results that we want. One other common mistake I find all too often in stores is that they display the store for the sales level that they currently have. I suggest you consider instead displaying your showcases for the store that you want to become. If your store is a $1 million store and your goal is to get it up to $1.3 million, we should display the showcases to look like a $1.3 million store and watch our sales climb to that level. It's much easier to display it in the manner that we hope to become than it is to raise the sales when our store doesn't look like it's up to that level. A key ingredient in being able to put that display strategy together most effectively are the inventory sales or inventory performance by category reports. If you're a subscriber to the Edge Retail Academy or to the Edge software, those reports are easily run off of your software for the last 52 rolling weeks. And in analyzing those reports, we can really get down to the details of what you're currently selling, what price point you're currently selling it at, and where there might be holes in the inventory. Once we've looked at that report, we can analyze where the opportunities are for growth, buy the goods, and then display it accordingly. So utilizing the data to develop a display plan is sort of like having a GPS in the store. Where do I have holes or lost sales in my inventory? What is the dollar value of my average sale of this category of merchandise? Where do I see opportunities? How much of my stock is over 12 months old? Having a merchandising plan is a little like having a GPS for each showcase. But before we can implement that, we have to decide where we want to go. Recommendation number 2, allocate your showcase space to match your sales goals. I mentioned before, we want the store to look like the store we want to become. Well, remember the duck analogy. We want to aim for where we want to be, not where we are now. So let's look at our showcase space and see whether or not the way that we're allocating this precious showcase space matches up to where we want to go. And if it doesn't, what can we do to make it work? Let's start by calculating a target sales number per running foot of showcase. This may sound complicated, but it's actually very, very simple. Start with the total amount of dollar sales of merchandise in your store. Don't include the beads, don't include repairs or special orders. This is predominantly the merchandise that comes out of the showcase that you've sold in the store. Now, for the second number, go ahead and add up the total number of running feet of showcase space you have in the store. So, for example, if your store has 10 showcases, each one 6 feet long, this total number would then be 60 feet. So, if we now divide the sales by the total number of feet of case, we'll get the sales per foot. So for example, $750,000 in sales and 50 feet of showcase would equal out to be $15,000 in sales per foot. So you must ask yourself, what does that $15,000 per foot really mean? It means that on average, the store must sell that amount of merchandise per foot of case just to stay the same with where we are now. So looking at this example of this showcase, this case with its sparse selection must sell $120,000 worth of merchandise just to maintain the current sales level. Let's look at gross margin. An industry average of 50% is pretty much the accepted gross margin rate. That would mean that our $15,000 per foot of showcase sales must make a gross margin of $7,500. And remember, this $7,500 must apply to every foot in every case. So now we go back to our sales goal. What was our plan? If we want to see a 20% increase, let's say, in colored stone sales, we'll need to raise that average per foot by 20%. And if we raise the average sales per foot or the average gross profit per foot by 20% in every foot of the showcase, in every foot of the store, we'll actually end up raising the store by the full 20%. If you'd like to have a handout explaining this concept in greater detail, it's available from my friends at OSPI, or you can drop us an email and we'd be happy to forward one to you. Now that we've done this and we've allocated our showcase space accordingly, then we should try this experiment with the staff. Let's pretend that I walk in your store and I lay down my American Express card and I tell your sales associate that I will buy anything in the showcase he or she might want to sell. I'll take anything in the case, you just ring it up. Well, I'm certain there are pieces in that case that they would choose to sell me. Ideally, it would be the most expensive piece or the one with the highest gross margin, maybe one they're just anxious to get rid of. But whatever that piece is in the showcase, we should make certain that we use display strategies and good display techniques to help me to make certain that I see that one piece. In this next example you see here, dark ring towers in the back center of the showcase. This area of the showcase is what we call the sweet spot of the case. It's actually the most commonly viewed area of the showcase when someone walks up to look in it. So this area is where you would want to place the items that you want most to sell in the case. Utilizing a good display strategy to determine how many focus areas and where those focus areas are going to be in the showcase makes a lot of sense. Here for Van's store, Terrifying Jewelers in Arkansas, you see in this showcase 3 distinct focus areas. This would be ideal if we had 3 different groupings, such as sapphires, rubies, and emeralds, in this one case. We're able to direct the customer's attention to 3 separate and distinct focal areas. When you're trying to create focus within the showcase, remember that height typically means emphasis. And in this particular setup, the large neck form in the back next to the floral prop would be the prime piece in the case that we would want most to sell because it's in the area that has the most emphasis. This next photograph showing 5 wood-trimmed risers would allow us to break our merchandise down into 5 areas and display each type of merchandise on a different platform inside the showcase. You'll also see some non-emphasis areas, the bracelet dome in the lower right-hand corner, the neck form on the floorboard with the 2 ring fingers in the center, and then a bracelet and a small neck off to the left. These are areas where merchandise of less importance would be placed simply because these areas are not going to be emphasized compared to the other places in the case. So as you go through this process, remember that emphasizing a particular piece of merchandise in the showcase by color or by position in the case makes certain that more people will see it. When more people see a particular piece of merchandise in the case, particularly if it is at a price that appears to be a good value, a perceived good value, the more people that see that piece, the better the odds are that we're going to be able to sell it. Point number 3 today is what I call the 20-40-40 display rule. And it's really very simple, and quite honestly, it's one of the most impactful things I can suggest to you today on this seminar. The 20-40-40 display rule, I recommend you try for a period of 60 days inside your showcases. And another way to think of it is a good, better, best type display arrangement. Here's how it works. Take the top 20% of the merchandise in a specific vignette or in a specific case. This would be the best merchandise, the most expensive 20%, and put that merchandise on individual elements. By individual elements, I mean display elements that hold only one piece. The reason for that is very simple. This is the best merchandise we're offering. This is the cream of the crop. And these best pieces of merchandise deserve to be on elements that only hold that piece and nothing else. Now we drop down to the next 40% of merchandise. That's the better. The first one we outlined was the best. Now we're at better. That better merchandise, the middle 40%, goes on trays that hold 3 or 5 pieces. It's not the best and it's not good. It's the better merchandise in the center. It gets placed in that mid area of the showcase between the best being at the back of the showcase and the good being closer to the customer. The bottom 40% of the merchandise goes on trays that hold 5 or 7 or more. As you see in this photograph, the best are on those individual ring stands. The better is in the trays that hold 3 in the center, and the good is in the trays that hold 7 or 12 rings nearer the customer side of the case. So, if we had 50 rings on a vignette, just to do the math for you, 8 to 10 of them would be on individual stands, 21 would be in trays that held 3, and 20 to 21 would be in trays that held 5 or 7. This allows us to display the merchandise in a strategy that matches the mindset and the buying motivations of your customer. So let's use the way your customer thinks about the merchandise and their perception of value in the showcase. Let's use their tendencies to help us close the sale. And once we've implemented this, we are displaying the merchandise in accordance with what the store staff is saying about it and how we want the public to see it. To take that a step further, imagine if you had $1,000 to go purchase an automobile. You probably wouldn't be able to be very picky about what kind of car you bought. In much the same way, when we have a customer who doesn't have a very big budget and comes in the store and we show him a selection of merchandise at an affordable price point in the good category, and we take that jewelry out of a tray that held 5 or 7, we can communicate to that client that we have a broad selection of merchandise that fits his price point. So the selection that he doesn't have in many other areas of his life, he has in your store because you have 7 rings that are in that affordable price range. Conversely, if we have the customer that comes in that typically is used to only buying the best, and they walk in your store to look at a particularly elegant piece of merchandise, if that merchandise is displayed on an individual display with just one item, we're able to use words like unique, creative, one of a kind, handmade, words that have strong emotion that will communicate to the customer that she's getting a very special piece here. And by doing so, create a sale that's compatible with the way that she thinks about herself and is compatible with the type of merchandise that she wants to buy. When we display all the merchandise the same, as in these red trays, we're basically saying all this merchandise is the same and we don't really care which one you buy. And whereas one of these items might be 10 times the price of another, we've displayed them all equally. So the way we've displayed the merchandise is not matching what we want to be saying about it. And you can see from this photograph that displaying your merchandise in this type of an arrangement makes your showcases look more interesting. Point number 4, win the comparison that's going on inside your customer's mind. If you think about it, jewelry is a very comparative purchase. Their customer is trying to decide, are they going to buy at your store or the store down the street? Are they going to buy this ring or that ring? Are they going to pay this price or that price? This perceived value or that perceived value? As a salesperson, if you can control the outcome of the comparison, you control the sale. You have to win this comparison between you and the other fellow. So realize that making a purchase is an actual process. The customer walks in the store and they're confronted with an entire store full of merchandise, and they may be interested, let's say, in a sapphire ring. So they walk in the front door of your store, they see a store full of all of this merchandise, but obviously if they're there for a sapphire ring, then the bridal area is not of any interest and the watches are not of any interest. So we narrow it down to the part of the store that they are interested in. From there, it gets narrowed down to the showcase that has the sapphire rings. And then it gets narrowed further to the section of the showcase that has the sapphire rings. Now I'm looking at a tray with 8 or 10 sapphire rings on it. I have to narrow that tray down to 2 or 3 to choose the one ring that I want to buy. If the salesperson cannot effectively control that comparison, if we can't eliminate everything else in the store and get the customer down to a single item that they like and that they have a good feeling about the perceived value of it, they think it's a good value. If we cannot control this, we lose the sale. If the customer can't decide between 3 rings, she usually doesn't buy any and she walks out the door and we lose the sale. So controlling the comparison and understanding how people make decisions is very, very important. Let me use this example to show this perhaps in a different way. You see on this slide the idea of pick a number. And if you were to choose any one of those numbers, and then I were to ask you how many of you chose 1 or 4 or 2, or how many of you chose 3, odds are 80% of the people in a common audience will choose the number 3. 3 is a very popular choice because it falls in the middle, and there's a propensity, psychological propensity on the part of many people to choose things that are in the center. So when we find ourselves displaying items of a similar style, but different sizes or different prices, like diamond solitaires or diamond ear studs or crosses, if you make the third option the option that you want most to buy, or you want most to sell, you will find that many of your customers will be led towards that third choice. I like to call it the Goldilocks principle because it's not too hot and not too cold. It's in the middle. It's just right. Perhaps you may not recognize it, but actually your local restaurant has become quite adept at using this principle. Many restaurants will advertise on their wine list a bottle of wine for $500, $300, some very, for most people, a very large price to pay for a bottle of wine. They don't sell very much of that $300 a bottle wine. But what they do find is if they have a $300 bottle on their menu, people are more inclined to spend $100 or $125 for a bottle. And so by having that higher priced wine on the wine list, we actually cause people to spend more money on the average bottle that they do carry. A few years ago, I was involved in working with a store in Chicago, and they had a Your Choice case in their store. And they had a grouping of merchandise that was Your Choice for $1,999, and another display that was Your Choice for $2,999, and a third display that was Your Choice at $4,999. And the owner of the store asked me what I thought about the display, and I responded with the way that I always respond, which was, how well is it selling the merchandise? Because remember, one of the basic principles of display is, does it facilitate the sale of the merchandise? If you have a beautiful display of merchandise and nobody buys it, that display belongs in a museum, not in a retail establishment. And the owner of the store said, well, he was selling quite a lot of the $2,999 merchandise, but he wished he could sell more of the $4,999 goods. Well, this principle of how people choose an in-between answer, like number 3, was shown to me in a book by Dan Ariely called Predictably Irrational. And Dr. Ariely has written quite a few books on how people make decisions and what prompts them to choose what they do choose. And so I brought up this to his attention. We went into the vault and we pulled out a collection of merchandise that was $7,999, therefore making the $4,999 pile the third choice out of the sequence of selection. We put that in the showcase, and I followed up with him a month or so later and learned that his sales of $49.99 merchandise were up about 25% over previous time. So this does, in fact, work. Suggest you look hard at trying to find a higher priced option on your diamond ear studs. It may be worth it to have a pair of 3-carat or 4-carat total weight ear studs in the showcase just to make those carat and a half or carat and a quarter look like they're worth, there might be the better choice. Point number 5, consider rearranging your bridal case to match how the bridal customer shops. I suggest that when you are displaying bridal merchandise on a branded display, it forces the salesperson to make 2 sales. The salesperson must sell the customer on the no-name brand first, and then and only then can they start to sell the actual ring. This is not the case if you have a line of goods like Tacori or Hearts on Fire, Mark Schneider to a certain extent, brands that are well known by the public, and when people come in and ask for those brands by name, having that merchandise on a Tacori display makes all the sense in the world. But in recent years, every bridal manufacturer has offered displays with their own name on it. And the problem with these displays is that quite often their name is predominantly displayed and no one knows what that name means. Consequently, you're finding yourself in this position of having to display or having to explain the Larry Johnson collection when in that case no one knows who that individual is. So let's look at how some other people display or walk the customer through the bridal purchase. If we look at the Blue Nile website, we'll see that quite easily they jump into classic, vintage, gemstone, side stone, halo, and 3-stone selections. They've organized their website by the style of the ring, as you see in this slide. Looking at the Jared website in much the same way. They're organized into solitaires, side stone, halo, channel set, 3-stone, pave, vintage, and sets. Moving on to Zale, we see that they as well have organized their website by style. So a year or so ago with my clients, I started recommending that we get rid of all of these vendor displays from the vendors who have no real following in the public's mind, and that we instead organize the rings in their showcase by style, and combine together all of the rings that are of a similar style on a single platform to make it easier for the customer when they come into the store to find what they're looking for. So yes, all of the halos from all of the different vendors, whether that was your own store brand or some other unknown brand, would be combined together on a single platform in the showcase. Then when someone walks in the door looking for bridal, and let's say looking for a halo, instead of you walking that customer all over the bridal department, showing them halos from this vendor over there and that vendor over there, and having your halo selection spread among 5 or 6 different cases, all of the halos would be in one place. If you organize those halos in a good, better, best type of an arrangement, with the good being closer to the customer, the better being in the middle, and the best being at the back, it makes it a lot easier to move that customer front to back inside the showcase and move them up in price without having to go from this display over to the 1-2 cases away and trying to explain why those goods over there are from a different designer and who it is, and constantly find yourself having to make explanations about these designers in order to build credibility for the merchandise. The customer's in the store in these cases because of your name, not so much these unknown bridal names. And we need to emphasize that. So it's important when doing this to remember that each style category should offer approximately the same number of choices. If you have 100 halos and 100 solitaires and 100 side stones, and when we get to vintage we have 25, just by comparison, the impression is going to be that you don't offer as broad a selection. We'll want to train our sales staff as well to ask, do you have a particular style in mind? And when the answer comes back that it's a solitaire, then we know exactly where we need to go. I often recommend that you get a small tray of 5 rings, put 1 ring each, and those can be alloy for that matter, put 1 of each ring of each of the different styles that you carry in that tray. And when your customer comes in, if she doesn't have a design or a style already in mind, you can show her that ring tray and give her an example of what you mean by classic or vintage, and allow her to point to the ring in the tray that most closely matches what she's looking for. It makes the whole bridal selling process so much simpler. Once again, I should emphasize, if you have a Tacori line or a Mark Schneider line or Hearts on Fire, that merchandise is requested by name. That customer expects to see the Tacori ring on a Tacori display, much the same way that if you had a Rolex customer, they'd expect to see your new Rolexes on a Rolex display. But all of the other merchandise can fare very, very well in showcase displays that are organized by style. Point number 6, let's move out all the dead stock that's hiding all the really good stuff in your case. Unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings, but don't kid yourself. If you've had merchandise in the showcase over 12 to 14 months, odds are not very good that that merchandise is going to sell. And waiting for someone to come in the door like a Prince Charming to buy that merchandise is a futile effort. David Brown of the Edge Retail Academy, with all of his research, has shown that merchandise that is still in the showcase after 12 months has a 90% chance of still being there in 5 years. That costs you money, and more importantly, it costs you other sales, because what happens is we end up forcing our customer to play hide and seek when they get inside the showcases. I recently did a survey of the women in one of my audiences, and I asked them to take this fictitious example. Let's say that a new dress shop opened up in town, and you went to the dress shop, you had never heard of it before, and you went there to look at what kind of merchandise they offered. How many dresses hanging on the rack would you look at before you made a judgment as to whether this store had good merchandise or did not have good merchandise, whether they were the kind of store you wanted to shop or didn't want to shop? And I was astounded at the answer. The answer ran from 4 to 8 dresses. That here a brand new shop opens in town, a woman walks in, looks at 4 dresses, and pronounces this shop as being a place that she won't come back to or a place that she likes. So thinking about that for a moment, if as a retailer we only have 4 to 8 shots at getting the customer's attention, why are we wasting so many of those shots on items that have been proven to be unpopular? If half of our merchandise in the showcase is over 12 months old, the odds are that our ongoing customer base has looked at that merchandise and has passed on it each time they've been in the store. So why do we think all of a sudden that Mrs. Brown, who's walked past that ring once a month for the last 13 months, is all of a sudden going to decide that she wants it this month? I think we're just wishing instead of using logic in how we've arranged our case. So what do? We pull everything out of the showcase that's over 12 or, 18 months old. We put it away in vault trays that you can access if it's necessary and if you find a customer who does want something like that. You organize the remaining inventory into logical groups in the way that we talked about today. Here's an ideal way to use the 20-40-40 principle. We look at the sales of what we have in the case, and we track and adjust how we've displayed that merchandise over the next 60 to 90 days and adjust it as needed in order to increase our sales. And at some point in the future, when we find that the old stock hasn't received any action, then we figure out how we're going to move that stock out through stock balancing, through clearance, through melting it, or some way of getting rid of the rest of that stock. When you do this in your showcase, you make your cases full of proven winners. The only thing in the cases are things that we know are selling or are new, and that increases our chances that people will see it as being more fashionable and will be interested in it. We free up our cash for more productive things, and obviously when we sell something, we reorder what sells and we sell it again, and we make ourselves a promise that we will set up a checks and balances in our system so that when a piece of merchandise in the case gets to this point of being 13 months old, alarms go off and we realize that we need to get started right then in moving the case. I was talking to David Brown the other day, and he mentioned that there's a magic around 39 days, that when a new piece of merchandise comes into the store, the sales staff will refer to it as here's something new for about 39 days. If they've not sold that piece in those 39 days, by the time it gets to 40, 45, 50 days, they've dropped the word new, and they're referring to it as just another lovely piece in the case. And by the time it gets to 13 months, they know they're not going to sell it, so they even stop showing it. All the more reason to keep our merchandise current. I'd like to add a few other bonus suggestions onto this seminar that might help you increase your sales by more effective displays. So one of the first of these is realizing that we have some real missed opportunities with vendor-provided displays. Some vendor displays make it easy to communicate with the customer. Some of them reinforce other media that the customer might recognize. This is particularly true of watch displays. And if they're good quality and of a good color and match well, they can save you a lot of money on your display investment. But I think you have to ask yourself, what is the role that vendor displays play in your store? How do your own store brand goods stack up? Well, if your brand is in the case next to a vendor provided display, you'd more than likely like to sell your own store brand first. So it's important that you use clean, good condition displays next to that brand new display you got from a vendor, simply because if you'd rather sell your own store brand than a slightly more expensive vendor brand item, I want the merchandise in your store, of your store brand merchandise, to be in a better looking display than the display that came from the vendor. I suggest that you avoid displays, vendor displays, that don't look right in your showcase because of the color, the design, the image, the materials, or security concerns. Avoid vendor displays that are too big for the volume or profit that they create. Remember our sales per running foot. Don't devote 3 feet of showcase to a line of merchandise that's not going to sell enough goods to warrant that much of your precious space. And you may find that it's actually better in the long run to use one of your own store display platforms and take the signage off the vendor display and display it in a manner that more closely matches the rest of your store. One other thing I suggest is that you consider turning your flat screen TV monitor in your store into a real selling tool. There is a firm called MyStoreMonitor.com that manufactures slides that project up onto your store monitor. 75 slides new per each month, and these slides turn your store monitor into a real selling machine. In addition, the art and graphics of these store monitor slides can be used on your social media pages like Facebook to bring your image that's in the store onto your online presence. There's more information on that product available from www.mystoremonitor.com. Be sure you clean your displays frequently. I suggest a solution of Simple Green. It works very, very well for cleaning leatherette and for cleaning suedes. I use 2 parts of water to 1 part of Simple Green. For cleaning the leatherette, be very careful not to scrub the leatherette if you have leatherette displays, because there is a varnish coat on the top of the leatherette, and once you've rubbed through that varnish, the color of the material underneath that is actually different from the color with the varnish. It's much like imagining the varnish coming off of a wooden table and how the wood underneath it would look different. So clean your displays frequently, but allow the Simple Green cleaner to do the work, and don't scrub the fabric. Make sure that you match the elements to the pieces that you're showing. Don't have your merchandise hanging off of a small neck form like this or a large neck form like this in a wall case where the necklace seems to just hang right off of the element. Don't overload your displays. When you see lots of necklaces on a neck form, it's very difficult to give the customer the impression that this is a unique, specially made, handcrafted necklace if you've got 5 more of them on there with it. And what we also find is that in many instances, the store employee will be less inclined to take the jewelry off of the neck to give it to a customer to show it if they don't think the customer is a real viable buyer. And we don't want to have our salespeople prejudging the abilities of our customers. Do not line up your merchandise in the showcase as shown with these boxes. When you do this, you're presenting all this merchandise equally, and you're saying to your customer, I don't care which one you buy, they're all the same, because I've displayed them all the same. There is no good, better, and best in this, and what you'll find in looking at this is people will actually not look at the rings. As they're scanning down the line of it, they'll begin to pick up speed instead of looking at them and looking at each piece individually. Boxes like this arranged with earrings are just boring. Remember the question of what do I want most to sell in this case? In this instance, it appears that we really don't care. Utilizing different colored display elements with missing pads communicates a message that's not compatible with a high-end fine jewelry store, jewelry retailer. And showing an assortment of wedding rings all in a mass presentation of just line upon line of rings without any differentiation is not a broad selection. Once again, we're just saying it's self-serve. Decide what you want to buy on your own because we think these are all equal. Lining up our trays in a showcase, again, thinking we're making a big selection is just, it's boring and it doesn't give anything to add anything to the romance of buying jewelry. If you're going to put price stickers in your showcase, be sure the price stickers are subtle. When they're this size, as you see in this particular display, what ends up actually happening is people shop by way of the price. They're only reading the numbers and they're really not looking at the quality or the style of the ring itself. I mentioned we just want to watch what we're saying in the showcase. In this photograph, you'll see a handmade riser that's been homemade by the retailer. You'll see floorboards that have got bubbles in them. These undermine your presentation. These are workable in a flea market type environment, but in a fine jewelry application, get someone to wrap the floorboards that can do it or use fabric that won't create these bubbles, and don't try to hand make your own risers and then try to tell somebody about the high quality of the merchandise that you're showing on it. Whenever you use props inside the showcase, don't use shiny props. If we use gold foil ornaments at the holiday time or we use glass beads, these items are going to shine more than the jewelry that's in the case. And we want the jewelry in the showcase to shine more than anything else that the customer sees inside the showcase. So if you must use holiday ornaments or things inside the showcase, spray them with a matte finish so that they don't reflect the light and the jewelry remains the star of the show inside the showcase. Use color to attract attention and prompt the customer to look at the items that you want most to buy. Make sure in a showcase like this with brown and white and gray elements, color doesn't really mean anything. My perception here is that someone was sent to the back of the store to get a neck form. It was a gray neck form. It came out, it went in the case without any reason. Well, people are preconditioned to think that color means something. And when we offer this type of a showcase assortment, color doesn't really mean anything and we confuse the customer. A lot of times I'm asked, what is the hot new color? And what color should we make our displays out of that would match the hot color? Well, the hot color for 2015 is Marsala. And the Marsala material it's a beautiful color, but it will be out in 2016. And if your displays are planning on being in your showcase for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and you choose to go with Marsala, you'll be very trendy for 1 year, and you'll be out of style for 5 years following that. I think it makes a lot more sense to stay with neutral tones and use the strong colors for accents, where you can go back in and replace those colors as the fashions move. Look at this case and you'll see merchandise that's been the earrings over on the side that are being put on the wrong kind of display, that are all askew. The bracelets on the bangle bar in the center are all askew. Just as you're setting your cases up in the morning, ask yourself if the display shows the merchandise to its best advantage, and realize that we're presenting this merchandise for purchase to our customer. Looking at this showcase where we see all this merchandise crammed in this 3/4 view case, it's very difficult to communicate the idea that we have a high-end fine jewelry store. I ask you to be careful if you're looking for floorboard material and avoid utilizing local fabric store fabrics. Changing out the floorboard color in a showcase is one of the least expensive and most effective things you can do to give your store a mini re-upgrade without spending a lot of money. Actually, floorboards can be changed for about $30 to $50 per showcase, and the impact is significant. I suggest you use a slightly different color than the color in your displays. I personally like the Charisma suede on the floorboards used with a leatherette display. Charisma suede runs about $40 to do a 6-foot case. Unfortunately, fabric store fabrics are not designed for the rigors of being inside a showcase with high intensity lights and heat, and some fabric store fabrics have sulfur dioxide content, which can actually combine with moisture in the air to tarnish the jewelry inside your showcase. So don't expect fabric store fabrics to last very long. If you want to use them for a Valentine or holiday promotion and then go back to real in display grade fabrics, they would work well, but don't expect long life out of those. So what do you do with all this information once you sit down and think about what I've outlined for you, and how do you apply it in your own individual store? Well, spend time talking to your sales team about merchandising and what they feel they can do in order to sell more, and ask how you can help them. Teach them some of these ideas, these hints, and these principles. I have a whole assortment of what I call 7-minute seminars that are ideal for morning sales meetings that will help you focus on individual display concepts in order to make your store more effective. The 7-minute seminars can be downloaded from ostby.com, or they're on my website under Effective Jewelry Display. So try these steps and track your progress. Look at your showcases with fresh eyes. Change them to reflect intention in every single case. Track the results and adjust as needed to reach your goals, and remove the dead stock. Remember, it's very important that you keep track of the sales results that your changes make. Otherwise, you have no way of really knowing whether a change we made in the showcase proved to be successful or hurt sales. So there has to be some kind of metric in the showcases as you analyze whether sales went up or down as a result of the changes that you made. I should also offer that I'm happy to give any of my clients a display checkup by telephone to help you get your store going in the right direction. All you need to do is forward some photographs of your showcases to me, to my email address at larry@larryjohnsonconsulting.com. And if you send me those photographs along with your latest Edge or Focus sales reports, we can set up a time to talk by phone about the ideas and the suggestions that I have that might be able to help you grow your business. There is no charge for that on-phone, telephone conversation, and with a little luck, we can find some new ideas that will help you be more successful in your store and accomplish your goals. I really appreciate you taking time to listen to this seminar today. I hope you feel free to give me a call at area code 817-980-2135 if you have any questions about what I've outlined, any comments, or any concerns over the points that I've raised, or if you have anything to share that would help others be more successful in their own store. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a good day.